to episode 14. I'm Dr. Susan Protasio, your host, and today we're going to bring awareness on human trafficking because it could be happening in our own backyard and may not be aware of it. And human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry. So today, I'm so delighted to introduce my two guests. I have Father Ben, who would share his insights on human trafficking from the concept of the Catholic social teaching and the concept of human dignity. And he is the director of the academic formation at St. Junifero Serra House of Formation of San Bernardino, California. And we have also Detective Justine Sanchez. She will share her insight on human trafficking from the law enforcement perspective. And she graduated from the California State University of San Bernardino with a bachelor's degree in psychology. And in 2022, she was assigned to the gang intelligence team as the human trafficking investigator. So welcome, Father Ben, and welcome, Justine.
Thank you.
Detective Justine.
Thank you.
So could you please, okay, let's do ladies first. So can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Detective Justine Sanchez. I'm with the Serra County Sheriff's Department, and I'm currently assigned to the Gangs and Narcotics Division on a federal gang task force as the human trafficking investigator, and I've been a part of this unit for approximately 4 years now.
Wow, awesome. And Father Ben, introduce yourself to our audience.
I am Father Ben Nwachukwu Udaku, originally from Nigeria, the Director of Intellectual Formation at the Junifero Serra Seminary here in Grand Terrace in the Diocese of San Bernardino. I am very grateful to be part of this podcast, telling people about what human trafficking signifies for a religious person from a theological perspective. I'm very, very glad this day to be with a detector who is going to help us, Justine Sanchez, and to look at it from a very civil perspective. Yes. And then I contributing from ecclesial perspective. The church lives in the society. The church continues to be a sacrament of Christ in the society. So I believe the conversation will be wonderful, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, and I totally appreciate the presence of the two of you. So I'm going to ask Detective Justine, can you share with us what is human trafficking is about?
Yes, so human trafficking is actually a difficult concept for most people to understand. Yes. According to the Penal Code, it's the deprivation of liberty of another for the purpose of performing forced sex acts or labor acts through force, fraud, or coercion. So the force, fraud, and coercion is huge. It's hugely emphasized. As an investigator, I have to prove that force, fraud, or coercion existed in order for that victim to actually stay with his or her trafficker. There's a huge misconception that movement, like physical movement's actually required. You know, there's people who think that there has to be all of these victims that are loaded into the back of a U-Haul truck, taken across county lines and forced into commercial sex. Does that happen? I'll tell you firsthand because I have investigations similar to that. That does happen. However, that physical movement is not required. It's the deprivation of your natural liberties to move about as a normal person usually could that qualifies or satisfies those elements of human trafficking.
Thank you. And Father Ben, from the perspective of the Catholic social teaching and the concept of human dignity, what is human trafficking?
Well, from the perspective of Catholic social teaching, the Church considers human trafficking as a crime against humanity, which reduces persons into objects for profit. And by so contradicting and mitigating against their inherent dignity. The church has been at the forefront in working against this social ill. In the Catholic social teaching, it's also wonderful for us to know the church manifests itself as a promoter of human dignity and also a lover of the sacredness of human life. From the pontificate of Pope Leo XIII in 1891, the church started this series of teaching and doctrine called Catholic social teaching that deals with issues bordering on human dignity, on social justice, and the common good, rooted in the scriptures and in the 2 millennia Christian thought, trying as much as possible to help the society reconcile itself with things like inequality in workplaces, poverty, helping people to negotiate their rights, labor rights, human rights, and also helping the poor to know that they have a place in the world, what we call option for the poor, and then taking care of the environment, what we normally refer to as stewardship of the environment. So the church has been at the forefront of seeing this problem, this plague, as a crime against humanity.
Yeah, thank you. So Detective Justine, how does human trafficking happen, and how are the victims lured or kind of, get by the traffickers?
Right. So when it comes to law enforcement, we tend to categorize crimes to 2 different categories. We have crimes against persons, so that's going to be domestic violence, assaults, and then we have crimes against property, which are going to be things like robbery, burglary, anything involving property. When it comes to human trafficking, since I've been doing these investigations, I've kind of made my own 3rd category, and it's crimes against psych, because these traffickers are really targeting the psychological, the mind of these victims. So a lot of them will actually portray themselves as boyfriends, romantic lovers, and take these victims on dates prior to ever actually having them engage in any type of prostitution. And then over time, it transpires into violence, threats, the coercion, and you can only imagine those victims who are going through that continuously, how hard it is for them to just escape the trafficker, because they've gone through all of that psychologically. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but a lot of these traffickers actually study Pavlov's dogs. They study various psychological concepts because they actually use that to target their victims and to really exploit vulnerabilities.
And also how to control them and how to give the needs that these victims are looking for. So in certain ways, that's what we call grooming.
Oh yes,
that's what we call
grooming,
grooming,
and grooming usually happens in the recruitment phase. So usually they'll recruit them and then they'll start grooming them, and that's usually when they're taking them on dates, buying them nice things, and that happens far before they ever actually exploit them as a prostitute or anything like that.
Okay. So who are the populations that are at risk for the human trafficking?
So from my personal experience, my investigations, I will say most of my victims are foster youth or underprivileged individuals, and I truly think that the idea behind that is because, as I mentioned, these traffickers are going to exploit vulnerabilities. So if they have, a young, youthful child who comes from a broken home, that trafficker is going to portray himself as though he has structure, and that child over time is going to just naturally gravitate towards that structure, because it may be different structure than you and I when we think of structure. But if you think of a child who comes from foster youth or is in and out of various homes and doesn't really have a consistent structure, if that trafficker exposes her to structure in the sense that, hey, at 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, we're going to go walk these streets as a street prostitution. After that, you can go back to the motel room, and they'll always have a roof over their head. Granted, it's either a motel or hotel. Sleep for a few hours. When you wake up, you can eat, and then do it over and over again. However, on Sunday, we'll take you to get your nails and hair done. So someone who doesn't have that structure, again, different from structure as you and I would think of, but they have that structure, it becomes natural to just gravitate towards that.
So that is the structure of stability
Yes.
that they have seen that they thought is normal.
Exactly, and providing basic needs.
Basic needs, okay.
Yes.
And also I would like to add, because it's interesting, I was reading from the website of the Homeland Security, and it mentions there is no single profile of a human trafficking victim, because the traffickers are willing to exploit anyone who will give them a profit.
Yes.
And then the website also mentioned examples of groups that may be at increased risk for human trafficking, and it's very interesting. So I would like to share it with you. Those are the groups of individuals who have experienced childhood abuse and neglect, and children and youth involved in foster care and juvenile justice systems, and also people experiencing homelessness, and also individuals living in poverty, and survivors of violence such as like domestic violence is also at increased, and also individuals displaced due to political instability, and even individuals working in industries with fewer legal protections are, become at risk for human trafficking. So, Father Ben, how can we understand the issue of human trafficking from the doctrine of human dignity?
It is very, very important and very
Yeah.
pertinent that human trafficking is a trade on human beings and with human beings. So it is important for us to first and foremost, ask ourselves, who is the human person? Because you cannot talk about the dignity of the human person without locating, who the human person is. The Bible is a very wonderful source of information, a divine revelation.
Right.
We call it the soul of theology. Bible chapter in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, from verse 26 to 28, describe the human person as being created in the image and likeness of God.
Yes.
What we call imago Dei and simulacrum Dei, image of God. We carry the DNA of God. God created us out of love. The human person is loved by God and can never be an object of trade. Yes. In this case, we have to go back to the Bible and see how God, presented this creature that he created and blessed. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, he created them male and female. Verse 28, God blessed them and said, increase and multiply. Right. Man is blessed. In Psalm 139, we pray, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. In Psalm 8, verse 5, the human person is made little less than the angels, being loved by God. Isaiah chapter 43, the human person, God said, I have called you by name, and you are mine. So this individual loved by God, created by God, this individual that has rationality, this individual that has what we call in philosophy, the gift of speech.
Right.
Homo logicon, which separates him from other animals that can speak, can think, can articulate, can move mountains. Because God has given us these capacities and capabilities. Among the Igbos of Nigeria, we call him, the human person, he and she, as Mado, the beauty of creation, beauty, Ndo, life, the beauty of life. Beauty of life is being ridiculed in our world. So from the perspective of the dignity of the human person, it is wrong, entirely wrong, to use a person as a means to achieve what I may refer to as reckless end of the individual who is victimizing and trafficking on human beings. So it is wrong. The church condemns it. In the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 24:14, said, no, we cannot enslave the human person because he is a creature of God and has an ontological responsibilities to himself and to the whole world. And it was Pope Francis that said, when you begin to marginalize the integrity, the dignity of another person, you are also in the same way marginalizing your own integrity and dignity. Because, our dear Martin Luther King said, what affects one individual affects others. So this particular scourge of the 20th and 21st century is an error, is a sin. And the Fathers of the Second Vatican Council in Guiding Experts, number 27, said that when we promote human trafficking, either in a way of prostitution or slavery or forced labor, that we are making the society to be poisonous.
Thank you so much for that.
So we pray
Yes.
that this evil may stop. I thank God for what our dear detector Justine is saying, even from a civil perspective, looking at the person. These people manipulate the sciences. They manipulate the
Yes.
studies of psychology just as to use it against vulnerable persons and communities. So the church says no to this evil.
We are having so much interesting conversation here, so much information to discuss. So follow us in the next episode and hear from us all the wisdom that my guest, Father Ben and Detective Justine, can share with us. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you find the wisdom in this conversation and it helps you and make you realize that human trafficking is a horrendous crime against the rights and the dignity of a human person. So thank you again for watching. Subscribe to us, click the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next episode. So thank you again. Take care of yourselves and blessings.